Nearly 90% of millionaires in the United States have built their wealth through real estate. And yet, fewer than 7% of Americans own even a single investment property. That gap between knowing real estate creates wealth and actually doing something about it is where most people spend their entire lives. Today, that changes. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to learn the exact step-by-step process for buying your first investment property. We will cover how to evaluate deals, how to finance without necessarily needing a huge down payment, and the biggest mistakes first-time investors make. But here is the part that is going to surprise you: the single most important factor in your first deal has nothing to do with the property itself. We will get to that, and when we do, it will completely reframe how you think about this entire process. Let us start with some context. Real estate investment in America is not a new concept. Since the post-World War II housing boom, ordinary Americans have been building generational wealth through property ownership. In the 1970s and 1980s, buying rental properties was considered a blue-collar investment strategy, something tradespeople and small business owners did quietly while Wall Street chased stocks. Fast forward to today, and the landscape has shifted dramatically. Platforms like Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com have democratized property data. Interest rates, while fluctuating, are still historically manageable compared to the 18% rates of the early 1980s. And with remote work reshaping where people want to live, rental demand in secondary and tertiary markets has never been stronger. The fundamentals for buying investment property right now are genuinely solid if you know what you are doing. So where do you actually begin? The very first step, before you look at a single listing, is defining your investment strategy. There are three primary models for first-time investors. The first is the long-term buy and hold, where you purchase a property, rent it out, and collect monthly cash flow while the asset appreciates over time. The second is the BRRRR method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, which allows you to recycle your initial capital across multiple properties. The third is house hacking, where you live in one unit of a multifamily property while renting out the others, essentially having your tenants pay your mortgage. Each strategy has a different risk profile and capital requirement. For most first-time investors with limited funds, house hacking is the most accessible entry point because it allows you to use owner-occupied financing, which typically requires as little as 3.5% down through FHA loans. Now let us talk numbers, because this is where most beginners either get excited and make emotional decisions, or get paralyzed and never move at all. The metric every serious investor uses is the 1% rule. Simply put, your monthly rent should equal at least 1% of the purchase price. A property that costs $200,000 should rent for at least $2,000 per month. This is a quick filter, not a final analysis, but it immediately eliminates overpriced properties from your consideration. Alongside this, you need to calculate your net operating income, which is your gross rental income minus all operating expenses, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, property management if applicable, and vacancy allowance. A healthy first investment property should generate a cash-on-cash return of at least 8%. That means if you put $40,000 into a deal, you should be generating at least $3,200 in annual cash flow after all expenses. But here is what nobody talks about when it comes to financing your first deal. Most people assume they need 20% down for an investment property. That is true for a pure rental, but it is not true if you are owner-occupying, which circles back to house hacking. An FHA loan allows you to purchase a 2, 3, or even 4-unit property with just 3.5% down, as long as you live in one of the units for at least 1 year. On a $300,000 duplex, that is only $10,500 versus $60,000. The difference is staggering. And during that year, you are learning the business from the inside while your tenants cover most or all of your housing cost. Location selection is where beginners consistently make their second biggest mistake. They either invest in their own backyard out of comfort, or they chase markets they read about in a headline without doing real analysis. The right approach is data-driven. You want to look for markets with 3 specific characteristics: population growth, job diversification, and a rent-to-price ratio that supports cash flow. Cities like Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Huntsville, Alabama have consistently outperformed coastal markets on these metrics over the past decade. They are not glamorous, but investing is not about glamour. It is about returns. When you identify a target market, you need to analyze individual neighborhoods using what investors call the ABCD framework. Class A neighborhoods have the highest property values and the most stable tenants, but they also have the thinnest cash flow margins. Class D neighborhoods have the lowest purchase prices but the highest management headaches and vacancy risks. For first-time investors, Class B and Class C neighborhoods offer the best balance, reasonable prices, stable tenant pools, and cash flow that actually makes the numbers work. Now let us talk about the deal analysis process itself, because this is where wealth is actually built or destroyed. When you find a property that passes your initial filters, you need to build a full pro forma. This is a spreadsheet that projects your income and expenses over a 1-year period. Include your mortgage payment based on current interest rates, property taxes, insurance, estimated maintenance at 1% of property value annually, a 5% vacancy allowance, and if you plan to self-manage initially, still model an 8 to 10% for property management so you know what the deal looks like if you eventually hire help. After all of that, if the property still produces positive monthly cash flow, you have a real deal worth pursuing. Here is where the most counterintuitive insight in this entire video comes in. The most important factor in your first investment deal is not the property, it is your lender. A great lender who understands investment property financing can save you tens of thousands of dollars over the life of a loan, help you structure deals creatively, and move fast enough to compete in a hot market. Most first-time investors spend 90% of their research time on properties and almost none on building relationships with lenders, CPAs, and real estate attorneys. The investors who build their professional team first consistently outperform those who lead with the search. Your team and lender, agent who specializes in investment properties, CPA, and contractor is your actual first investment. What does the due diligence process look like once you are under contract? You have a standard inspection period, typically 10 to 15 days depending on your state. During this window, you need a full home inspection, a sewer scope if the home is older than 20 years, and ideally a contractor walkthrough so you have accurate rehab estimates before you commit to closing. Many first-time buyers waive inspections in competitive markets and live to regret it. A foundation issue you missed can turn a profitable deal into a financial disaster within the first 6 months of ownership. Let us talk about what happens after you close. Property management is a skill, and like all skills, it has a learning curve. Your tenant screening process is everything. Require a credit check, background check, and proof of income showing rent is no more than 30% of gross monthly income. A bad tenant in a good property will cost you more money and stress than a good tenant in a mediocre property. Set up a dedicated business bank account for rental income and expenses from day one. This makes tax time manageable and keeps your personal finances separate, which is critical if you ever need to show lenders a clean operating history for future deals. The long game here is portfolio building. Your first property is not your last. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Realty Pulse for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.